Housing is such an important component of our economy and the American dream, but it's become unaffordable for many people. It's heartbreaking to see people priced out of the market due to bad policies and high interest rates. And homeownership has historically been a path to accumulating wealth. Now it seems more a path to debt. To learn how we might address this problem, we've invited Donna Jackson back to the Economic War Room. Last time she was here, she represented Project 21, but now she's with CFACT, the Committee for a Constructive Tomorrow. Donna Jackson, CFACT policy analyst, is a seasoned expert with public and private sector experience. She's spent decades as a pro-energy advocate for the minority population through her advocacy work with congressional leaders and ministry leaders. She's sought after as a speaker. She's frequently testified before congressional leaders on the plight of the debilitating energy policies on minorities and low-income populations. Her media appearances have included Newsmax, One America News, NTD TV, Beck TV, national radio, national network shows. She's at the top of her class when she was an accounting student, and she's worked in accounting, auditing, tax, and management roles with major companies such as Ernst & Young, Cardinal Health, and Marriott International in the private sector, before joining in the public sector as the Vice President and Deputy Controller for the Export-Import Bank of the United States. She's a firm believer in free markets and entrepreneurship rather than government as a means of lifting people out of poverty. Welcome back, Donna. It's good to have you.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Well, we're so glad to have you back. Now, you've written some incredible op-eds. Affordable housing, how Donald Trump could accomplish more than Jimmy Carter. Trump orders emergency price relief on housing. I mean, you're basically making a private sector argument for how do we fix a public sector caused problem. How can housing be used to reduce poverty, and what should the government do to get in it or out of it?
So, the first thing we have to realize is the way that we build intergenerational wealth is from home ownership. It always has been that way. If you think about the United States and how we started, it was unique from other countries because people could own land. What we see, though, is through a bureaucratic state that they're reducing that ability to do that using environmental regulations primarily to stop home ownership. If you look at home ownership, 25% of all the costs for a home is related to government regulation. 25%. When they took an all government approach to actually increasing the number of environmental policies that go into home building a home. They made restrictions on land where you can build. The government has done a big grab when you look at the wetlands, in the Endangered Species Act that they've used as pretense to be able to stop home ownership and stop building on any facilities. The other thing they've done is they've taken an all-out war on every appliance in the home. Now, this is incredible. You have the Housing and Urban Development, whose job supposed to be is to expand home ownership, but yet they've adopted an international energy efficiency code, which says that you have to comply in order to reduce greenhouse gas emissions that the National Home Builders Association says adds up to $31,000 for each home. Now, that for some people, they say, well, that doesn't seem like very much. But there's a statistics out there that says that for every $1,000 you add to a home, you price out a large number of individuals out of the housing market. But that's not the only attack. They've attacked water heaters at an additional $953. Air conditioners. I talked to an air conditioner repairman that said it used to be unusual for him to have $5,000 for a project. Now he said the average, $15,000 to $20,000 for air conditioners. They've attacked refrigerators, stoves, light bulbs, ceiling fans. I mean, the list goes on, and all of these are exponentially higher and less efficient than they were for the older products. And so all of these additional costs actually creates a situation where the homes are so expensive that we don't even go into financing. Because if you're priced on the market, you don't have to worry about getting financing because you already can't afford it.
Well, that goes the American dream. I mean, that kills the American dream. You've got the one side that you just shared. Then now add the other side. I looked at a study and it says regulations are costing us income. So it destroys affordability both ways by making it too expensive to buy a home. And on the other hand, your income is much lower. I think Biden added $50,000 worth of regulations to the average family. And here, one study that was quoted in Reason magazine said that if we had regulations at the same level as we did in the 1940s, the average family income would be $330,000, not $60,000 a family. So we're destroying families. Here's a couple of points I want to make. One is The Economist is out, and it says the revolt against regulation. People are waking up because of good instruction from people like you, Donna. And then we've got also good news in that Scott Turner's going to come back and hopefully restore the Housing and Urban Development Department back to the principles of our good friend, Dr. Ben Carson. Scott's a friend too, so we're excited to see that. Do you think the Trump administration's going to be able to make a difference in these areas?
Absolutely, but it has to act quickly. I mean, the Biden administration and previous administration, the Barack Obama's administration, they took years in crafting these regulations. So we have to be diligent about every regulation they put forward. You know, it's important to note that a person that owns their home has 40 times the wealth than a person who is a renter, according to the National Association of Realtors. And that's the reason why they don't want people to own their homes. Because if you have people that don't have wealth, if you have people that need government assistance, you can create a permanent government dependent underclass.
Well, there's no question about that. And you also have BlackRock and others buying up all the homes that are renting them to people. And so we feel like we work, for a company, and we have to go to the company store for our housing and food and everything else. All right, Donna, you're a brilliant lady. We've got more with you. We're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about your commentary. It's time for a post-Sharpton agenda for the Black community. I mean, it's a fascinating op-ed that you've written, and I want to dive into it in depth when we come right back after this break. In uncertain times, finding stability in the economy can feel challenging. But what if you could navigate economic volatility while honoring your biblical values? At Timothy Plan, they believe this balance is possible. Timothy Plan filters its volatility-weighted ETFs and family of mutual funds through a biblical pro-life and pro-family lens, so you can see competitive returns and moral responsibility, helping you to weather the economic storms. With Timothy Plan, align your investments with your values while adapting to our ever-changing culture. Since 1994, Timothy Plan has been recognized leader in biblically responsible investing. Timothy Plan, your bridge between faith, finances, and the future. Visit timothyplan.com or call 1-800-TIM-PLAN or 1-800-846-7526. Investing includes risk, including possible loss of principal. Before investing, carefully consider a fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses contained in the prospectus available at timothyplan.com. Here's a $10 bill. It's got the picture of Alexander Hamilton on the front of it. It's kind of sad. When I was 10 years old, everything that I could buy for $1 now costs about $10. That's the cost of inflation. It's just paper. It's not backed by anything. You can't exchange it for gold and silver. You used to, but you can't do that anymore. And that's unfortunate. Pirates wouldn't accept this. Pirates, they wanted gold and silver. Patriots, the founders of this nation, also wanted gold and silver coin. In fact, they put a provision in the Constitution, 17 words, that said states could only make gold and silver coins tender within the states. That's why I wrote this new book, Pirate Money, Discovering the Founders' Hidden Plan for Economic Justice and Defeating the Great Reset. It will explain exactly the history of money and exactly why gold and silver coins can be made modern with new technology and a useful monetary system. PirateMoneyBook.com. We're talking with Donna Jackson. She's a brilliant lady. She's an accountant, but she's far beyond that. She understands public policy. She understands private policy. And she's written a brilliant op-ed, a commentary. It's time for a post-Sharpton agenda for the Black community. Donna, what is a post-Sharpton agenda?
It's where we're not listening to the race hustlers who sit down and they make money off our grievances. They create this narrative that Black people should be afraid of white people while they're actually working side by side with them, living in gated communities and making money. This is so sad, and it's been sad for a long time. You have people like Al Sharpton, whose primary agenda is to keep Black Americans poor. That's what they want. And what they do is they discourage African Americans from being accountable for their actions, for showing their initiative to create, and everything becomes someone else's responsibility. That's not what we're supposed to be doing. And, recently it's really come out that Al Sharpton, who charged Kamala Harris $500,000 to do an interview because the only thing he cares about is getting rich. But at the same time, they put out programs like defund the police that makes African-American communities more dangerous, have higher crimes. They advocate for environmental policies that actually make housing more expensive. It actually kills manufacturing jobs, which is necessary for individuals that have a lower educational rate and skills, and it makes energy more unaffordable so it creates energy poverty, food insecurity, and they advocate for these programs. At the same time, they create NGOs so non-government agencies who actually benefits financially from these grievances. So you've heard a lot recently about all of these programs under that DOGE has been unveiling. Well, if you look at places like California, San Francisco, and they're not the only ones, they're paying $4,000 a month for a tent for homeless people, a tent that you can go to Dick's Sporting Goods and get for $99. They're paying $4,000 a month. So you wonder why we have a large amount of poverty. It's not because there's not enough money, and it's not because there's not enough government funding. It's because there's too much money flowing that there's no reason for them to get rid of it. So he advocates for people to be on government assistance so that they create a ceiling that people never get out of poverty and that they never become homeowners or they never become entrepreneurs because you're not allowed to have that many assets. So everything they're doing is forcing people to either be in poverty or stay in poverty. And he's the biggest advocate for that because if he doesn't have people that have a grievance, he doesn't have a job.
Wow.
I think that's what's important to realize is we've seen Black people who are starting to realize, wait a minute, they're purposely creating these situations so that they can make money off of us.
Wow.
And that's why you saw the shift. Why on earth would you want to have illegal immigrants crammed into African-American communities? And remember, all of these illegal immigrants are military-age men. So what are they doing? Displacing Black workers and replacing them with illegal immigrants. What are they doing? Forcing schools to close to house illegal immigrants. That means that the kids are losing the benefits of getting a proper education because they don't have the resources at home to be able to keep up We saw what happened with COVID. And they're blocking school choice. And the list goes on and on and on.
Well, Donna,
Now,
I'm shocked because I'm looking at this, and so many people will see Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, and others praising Donald Trump if it's the 1980s or the 1990s, and then opposing him as a racist tyrant and everything else, when he decides to run for president. I think race relations have worsened under Obama and Biden especially, but I think that the Black community is seeing through it, and we saw an incredible surge unexpectedly for the Al Sharptons in support for President Trump. What are your thoughts?
It's 100%. People didn't hate, Black people weren't supposed to hate Donald Trump until he ran as a Republican. Why? Because they did not want to lose that grip on the Black community, because Donald Trump, who as a businessman, understands that if everybody prospers, if you create an economy for everyone, then everyone prospers. Under Donald Trump, first presidency, it was the golden age for African Americans. Our wealth grew faster than white Americans. We had home ownership at a faster rate. We had entrepreneurs at a faster rate. We had opportunity zones. All of these things that were prosperous. We brought manufacturing back. All of these things benefited the Black community, and it angered the white liberals who wanted African Americans to always stay poor. And it's been like that for 60 years. And I think that we're seeing a big turnaround.
Well, I think you're right, and the claim from the Democrats is, well, the Black community will absolutely embrace Vice President Kamala Harris because of her skin tone, but people are smarter than that. We want good policies. It doesn't matter what your skin tone is, right?
Exactly. When I go into a grocery store, I'm not looking around for the color of the people that are waiting on me. I'm looking at the service that they provide me. You can have good service and bad service, and it doesn't matter the color of your skin. It only matters that you have pride and accountability and excellence when you're in there waiting on people, and that you want to add value. But they've reduced African Americans down to the color of our skin and not what we're able to produce.
Well, that's the sin of DEI. The pigment of your skin is not the determining factor of how qualified you are. And you're one of the most qualified accountants I know. We're going to need to take another break. When we come back, I'd like you to channel your inner accountant, and let's fix the problems we see in government. We'll be right back.
Oh, hi. I'm Kevin Sorb, and I'm here to tell you about coffee. Well, not really, but I'm going to use coffee to illustrate my point. Here we have several different coffees, each with its own unique characteristics. First, we have instant coffee. This coffee pretends to be coffee, but it's not really coffee at all. It's a fraud. Plus, it tastes terrible. I'm out. Next, we have woke coffee. Their coffee actually tastes pretty good, until you find out that when you drink it, you have to admit that you've oppressed other coffees in the past. Insanity. I'm out. Next, we have big tech coffee. Now, these guys used to encourage folks to share with others what they thought about their coffee. But now, if you say you don't like big tech coffee, they'll take away your coffee pot. I'm out. This brings us to Patriot Mobile Coffee, right? This is one big cup of truth and freedom. There's no fraud here. Patriot Mobile is America's real Christian conservative wireless provider. Patriot Mobile gives back millions of dollars every year to organizations that are on the front lines fighting for our freedoms. Patriot Mobile offers the best nationwide 4G and 5G coverage on the same networks as the other major carriers. So you'll get the same great coverage, along with 100% US-based customer support, while knowing you are supporting a company that shares your conservative values. Switch to Patriot Mobile today by visiting patriotmobile.com or call 972-PATRIOT.
We're speaking with Donna Jackson, and she's a brilliant political commentator, but she's also a top accountant with experience both in the private and the public sector. I want to blend those and get her thoughts politically on how do we fix this massive federal debt problem. We've got $36.5 trillion in debt. We spent $30 trillion in the, quote, war on poverty over the last 40, 50 years. This isn't sustainable. Donna, what do we do about it?
I mean, you know what? One of the things that I've always said is if most government agencies were a private business, they'd all go bankrupt. Honestly with you, they spend more than they bring in. They don't create efficiencies and innovations. And the primary issue is they're wrought with government fraud. Now, I want to, talk about the importance of language, because we know what we've seen over the last 4 years. In a private business, if I lost or couldn't account for $300 million, it would be fraud and people would go to jail. Yeah. In the government, we don't use the word fraud. We use the word waste. We say government waste. So what's the implication there? That we got some usefulness out of it, and this was just the runoff of what we didn't need, what we don't have. Well, government waste is actually government fraud, and there needs to be some accountability. There needs to be some people that are going to prison because we're committing government fraud, and we're actually legitimizing that. What you see, especially what DOGE is trying to do, is they're trying to identify those big areas of government fraud that's happening and alleviate that. We used to pay 3 weeks of our wages to taxes. Now people are paying 4 to 5 months of their income to taxes. And all of that is amounting to the overspending and the fraud that we see happening. What they've done really is built the American people. They grifted the American people out of millions of billions of trillions of dollars. And that's the reason why our debt is so high. It's not because these programs are actually going to produce the results that we want. It's because it's being stolen by individuals and under the pretense that we've somehow wasted, but we got some usefulness out of it.
Well, it's either going to come from the taxes, as you mentioned, or it's going to come from inflation, because we build up this massive debt. We have to print money to pay it off. That creates inflation, and that harms the average person. Even if you're not paying taxes, like you're below the threshold to pay taxes, and you're not making a lot of money, you're still paying for it because the prices have gone up so rapidly, and you're dealing with the inflation that's resulted from it.
Well, no, everyone is paying taxes. And here's the reason why. We either pay it through the products that we buy. There's seen taxes and there's unseen taxes.
That's true.
When you buy a product, they're being taxed 2, 3, 4 times at every aspect of the supply chain before it gets to you, and then you pay an additional tax at the sales counter. So everybody is paying a tax. But the problem is that most of these taxes are completely unnecessary. And what's happening with the tax money that we're using? It's going to government fraud. When I was in accounting at the bank, I talked to a partner in the one of the big 4 accounting firms. He said the biggest practice they have in Washington, D.C. is government fraud. And he said the amount of fraud that's happening is unbelievable. And so what we have is huge amounts of I don't even like the word overspend, because that's not really what we're doing. We're actually the huge amounts of government fraud that going to programs that are not doing what they're designed to do needs to stop.
Well, you made a really important point about hidden taxes, and you're 100% right. They're hidden. Everybody's paying tax, and it's because of this fraud. But in the private sector, if you have fraud, Bernie Madoff was a fraud, and there were people who went and got as much of that money back as they could. When there's government fraud, nobody ever goes to get the money back.
And that's one of the biggest points that I've pointed out to members of Congress. We're concerned about the money that hasn't been spent yet. But we need to investigate the money that's been already gone out the door, where it's gone, who it's gone to, and being able to go back and claw back that money. And people need to go to prison for it. I can tell you right now that In one bill, they had $60 billion in environmental justice money. $60 billion. I'm going to give you the equivalent of that. That is the market capitalization of Ford Motor Company when they were prosperous, that hired over 100,000 people and millions of small businesses. That is the equivalent of more than 2,000 Black Wall Streets. You heard a lot about that. And we wouldn't even be talking about poverty with Black people. But where did that $60 billion go? No one knows. It went to NGOs that have no ties to the African American community. Another one, we spent $8 billion to build 7 electric charging stations. We spent $53 million on 1 electric school bus. That's not government waste. That is government fraud. If we went down and looked at all the government fraud that's happening, our budget would probably be half of what we have right now. And so we have to have those members of Congress that's willing to say no more and investigate and put people in prison. Until we put people in prison, we're never going to see a change.
And we got to get the money back, as you mentioned. I mean, this is the solution to our government. We need great, brilliant mind thinkers like Donna Jackson with an accounting understanding to be able to fix this. We have an accounting problem. She nailed it. She called it fraud. That's exactly what it is. You want to understand why there's a wealth gap? Do you want to understand why we have poverty? She just explained it to you here on the episode. Donna, you're brilliant. Where can people follow your work regularly?
Yes, they can follow me at CFACT.org, C and fact.org.
CFACT.org for the great Donna Jackson, explaining how we fix the government. I mean, if Elon Musk isn't calling you, he should. You've got the answer. DOGE needs to get in and not only identify it, but use forensic accounting and get the money back. All right, we're going to summarize everything we've talked about in our free economic battle plan at economicwarroom.com. What we see as a marketplace, our enemies, both foreign and domestic, they see it as a battle space, and they're coming after you. We got to fix this. Kevin Freeman from the Economic War Room.